Welcome back to the 10-second runoff powered by Culture Media with your hosts Joe Mitchell, Alec Escade, producer Magic Mikey Shiaza. 2 weeks of college football down. We've already had a ridiculous amount of upsets.
Oh yeah,
so far.
Oh yeah, I mean more than I can remember having in the last first 2 weeks of last year.
Mm-hmm. Clemson goes down week 1. LSU loses a big game to Florida State week 1, and then again this week Texas beats Alabama. Texas A&M wins. UNC goes down to the wire. I'm sorry,
Miami
Texas
wins,
A&M loses. But UNC goes down to the wire. So let's get straight into that. Let's start with Texas and Bama.
Yeah, man. We I didn't predict this one to go this way. I predicted the score, but I literally the exact score, just the wrong way.
Yeah.
I had Bama over Texas, but of course, as you see, it was the other way around.
You know what you didn't have?
I know exactly what you're about
Quinn
to say.
Ewers. Quinn Ewers. I've been saying this since the beginning of the year. They are Quinn Ewers away from being a really good football team.
Mm-hmm. I think that can be said. I think the pass catchers would also argue that those pass catchers away.
No doubt.
Being a great team. I mean, he impressed me, right? I'm not going to sit back and say somebody throwing 350 yards against Bama and 3 touchdowns is not going to impress me, especially with no picks, right?
Yeah.
But with that being said, I mean, his pass catches were open, and I mean open.
I mean, you say that, but he also puts the ball to a place where they can go get it. Like there was one ball, I believe it was 44 yards on the stat sheet, but he threw that ball about 55 yards in the air.
Yeah.
The receiver, I believe it was Xavier Worthy. The receiver was at the 25-yard line when Quinn let go of the ball, and he caught it in the end zone. That's what you want from a quarterback. That can't look any better.
Separation.
Not when the ball was thrown. It's an overhead safety.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I mean, but he straight beat that guy. But no, I think he's good. I mean, I'm not gonna say I'm on the bandwagon yet. I'm on Texas's bandwagon big time.
Yeah.
But I'm not on Quinn Ewers like you probably expect me to be yet.
Well,
but he had a great game for sure.
He remains as the second best odds for Heisman at plus 900 after week 2.
He's got Bama's number too because he had a great first quarter against Bama last year before getting taken out. Before getting hurt.
Before we talk about Bama, let's stay on the pass catchers for Texas.
Yeah.
JaTavion Sanders had 5 receptions for 114 yards. They could not cover him straight up. He never got in the end zone, but that guy is serious. And once he has the ball in his hands, he's a threat.
He makes a great case for being the best tight end in the country, even with a man named Brock Bowers existing. So, yeah, I mean, keep going.
And then A.D. Mitchell with another 2 touchdowns.
Right.
I know you're a big fan of A.D. Mitchell, especially when he was at Georgia. He scored in every playoff game they played in.
Yeah.
But
and they play a lot of playoff games, Georgia does. And then, of course, we had Xavier Worthy catching that huge, that bomb. I mean, gorgeous ball.
Yeah.
Just breadbasket, great catch.
But Quinn had a couple of those, man. There's one down the left sideline, one down the right sideline. Just as the game progressed, I was just shocked at the sheer number of balls that he fit in such a tight window. The only place the ball could be, he was putting it there and giving his receivers a chance. I mean, especially after watching this weekend, Quinn Ewers just continues to climb my list of quarterbacks.
Really? Yeah. I mean, he definitely went up a couple as far as I'm concerned. I don't know, man. Again, with those pass catchers, like all he had, if he would have put that ball 20 yards left or 20 yards right, Xavier Worthy still would have caught it. I mean, he had so much separation. Now, he put it perfectly.
Yep.
Right? But it looked perfect because, I don't know. I like him. I think he's really good. It was, you're right, a 44-yard pass.
But I don't think that's an argument that's fair for Quinn. You can say it's a perfect ball, but he could have not thrown it perfectly and the receiver still would have caught it. Fine. But he threw it perfectly. Regardless of the latter part of the statement, it was a perfect ball. And he did that on multiple occasions.
I mean, okay, yeah.
Disagree?
Yeah. I mean, to an extent, yeah. I mean, that ball in the end zone, I mean, it made it look perfect because the ball ended up being caught like this, right? But had it been literally 10 yards that way, the ball still would have been caught like this. So, I don't know. And again, his receiver beat that corner by,
safety.
10 yards.
Yeah.
So.
All right, well, let's get into Bama because to me, and it's something that was similar with Alabama when they lost to LSU last year. You were saying this before we started rolling. And then again in this loss to Texas today. To me, their biggest issue was a lack of discipline.
Yeah. I mean,
and that's not something you would typically see out of a Nick Saban team.
Right. And I did start that statement by saying they got flat beat, right? They did get beat by Texas. LSU went and beat them, especially with that two-point conversion last year. But, yeah, I mean, those are the commonalities in both. Tennessee was a little bit different last year because that was a shootout and they didn't have the ball last. But yeah, I mean, this 10 penalties for 90 yards. And like you said, from a Saban-led team, that's a little much.
And again, just to stay on that note there, Jermaine Burton caught 3 touchdowns in this game and only got credit for 1.
Yeah.
2 of them came back due to penalty. Now, on one of them, which was right before halftime, where the ball got tipped, he came back to it, made a diving catch. That still, resulted in 3 points. They kicked a field goal to go to the half. But then coming out of the tunnel for the second half, Jermaine Burton caught another ball where he made a couple people miss and took it to the house, and they got no points on that. So you're talking about an 11-point swing, which is the difference in the game.
Yeah.
So discipline is crazy there to see.
Especially from the O-line, man. I mean, that's a group that Saban always has an insane O-line. And they do, right? But that pass rush was getting there a little bit more than – he's probably comfortable with. And then, the penalties, man, the holdings, the pre-snap penalties even, just absurd. I agree. Now, Milroe, right?
Yep.
You want to talk about not sold. I mean, I don't know that I was sold before the season. What about now, looking back, even from the first game? And then, of course, this one.
So Milroe is interesting because his profile is that of a dangerous weapon of a quarterback. Yeah. He's fast. He can get out of the pocket. He's got a really good arm. Honestly, his accuracy is not bad either. To me, it's the decision making.
Yeah.
He threw 2 interceptions in this game, and neither of them, or both of them rather, were to double covered receivers.
Yeah.
He threw them into double coverage, whether it be man or zone. There was 2 guys there. One of those picks again resulted in 3 points for Texas, and the other resulted in 7 points for Texas.
Yeah.
So we've taken 11 points off the board for Alabama and given Texas 10, and that's the difference in the game when you lose by 10.
Right. Yeah, man. I mean, I think it's about time. I know Saban doesn't really hesitate to, flop quarterbacks or anything like that. I bet you we see that pretty soon. After a game like this, I bet you we see that pretty soon. Now, if we're looking at stat lines, right, he also did have 2 touchdowns taken off the board.
Mm-hmm.
That's
the thing. I don't necessarily agree with you that we're going to see a quarterback change.
Yeah, I mean, crap. I mean, you look at why, right? He gave the ball away twice, and like you said, the double coverage. I know we watched the game. I mean, those were poor.
Because to me, that's not a lack of ability. That's a decision making thing, which is something that can be fixed in the film room. I don't think there's another quarterback in that room that has the ability that Jalen Milroe has.
I wouldn't disagree, but I think there's that's rough though, because ability doesn't matter.
It's got to get fixed. I'm agreeing with you there, but I don't think.
You don't think it would have already been fixed?
Well, I'm sure it would have, but I think
Saban quarterback room.
It certainly should have already been fixed, but that doesn't mean just because Jalen Milroe made 2 mistakes between the ears when he played so well for the remainder of the game,
right.
and again, like you said, had two touchdowns taken off the board.
Yeah,
I don't think you can just plug Ty Simpson or Tyler Buckner or whoever it may be, Eli Holstein, whoever you're going to plug into that spot, and immediately have those decision-making issues fixed. As I think if you're going to do that, they may actually take a step back.
Really? That was going to be my next question. So whenever Bama's going to go, they're going to go. You don't think there's a quarterback in that room that would have them winning more games than Jalen Milroe?
I mean, potentially, but I don't have a reason to believe when there's not a more talented quarterback in the room who has less experience, less meaningful snaps, all of those things. Why would I expect them to go into the game and be better between the ears than Milroe? Now they may have that, but that's not my assumption.
Yeah. No, man. I mean, the only reason I say that, I mean, this is their only competition he's faced so far. And man, he played a pretty bad game. He ran for less than 3 yards a carry. He threw 50% from the field. He had a bunch of yards. He had a lot of yards after the catch. And obviously 2 touchdowns. And did throw 2 picks.
I'm with you. Alabama's got some stuff to figure out.
Yeah.
They're going to have to play LSU that first weekend in November. But unfortunately for them, they do have to play Tennessee as well. Now, again, both of those games are at home, so
that helps.
But 2 really tough games on the remainder of their schedule.
So was this game, right? So
that's why I'm with you.
That's rough. Man, they had, I don't know if this even needs to be talked about, but they had a horrible game day showing. I don't know if you saw the pictures and everything.
Yeah. Well, I think that's just because they always get game day.
Well, that's true, I guess. That's kind of fair. But yeah, I mean, they I don't know, man. That's a struggle. But man, with a favorable schedule like that, I don't know. I just don't want them to throw this season away. Of course, I'm not a Bama fan, but Jalen Milroe is looking like he's kind of trending towards doing that. And by throwaway, I mean 10-2 or 9-3. I don't mean.
I think 10-2 is their floor. I think they could split Tennessee and LSU, but I don't see them losing.
Is that because of this football team, or is it because Saban hasn't lost more than 2 games?
I think it's both. They've got arguably the most talented team in the country on paper, and not arguably, they have the most talented team in the country on paper, and the best coach of all time leading them. They have things to fix in the film room, but other than that, this is a really, really good team, and Texas just got the better of them.
And then another thing too,
also Texas is a really good team.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, that secondary also got torched too.
Yeah.
So I put a lot of focus on Milroe, but they just looked horrible, really, for Alabama's purposes. That secondary got torched. I mean, the receivers were, again, I alluded to it earlier when we were talking about Ewers. The receivers were, perennially open.
Yeah.
So that's like, again, a lot of things need to be fixed. Kool-Aid got burnt several times. I mean, they better figure it out, and like you said, quick, because they got some games coming up that they can't afford to really.
Well, and look, it was a game. For the vast majority, for the whole game, it was a game up until
midway in the fourth.
6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So I think you got 2 really good teams saw each other in Tuscaloosa on Saturday, and the team that made more mistakes lost, and that's how it goes.
Back to the quarterback, just one last thing. I don't know who it would be, and like you said, you named 4 of them. They got a lot of talented quarterbacks in that room.
Yeah.
I would venture to say that one of those would have had this game turn out a little bit differently, but I don't know who, and I guess that's kind of the problem, right? I don't know that there is a more talented quarterback to step up or do anything. The name that jumped out to me was Holstein. We saw him in camp. We saw, talk about talent. I mean, that kid's got it, right? But I don't know that you run out of true freshmen in a game like that. So I agree with you in that the Milroe part, but that's trouble. That could mean trouble.
I tend to agree with you that Holstein is incredible for a true freshman. I don't think we're going to get to see him because even if they were going to go freshman, I tend to think they're going to go Lonergan over Holstein.
I agree.
So
and then another thing too, man. I mean, this is a 2-pick game from a Bama quarterback. Like, you know how few – I don't know the stat, by the way. It's not a quiz. But if you take the last, 5 Bama quarterbacks and you took all those games, I mean, that's hundreds of games. You know how many 2-pick games there were fluttered in there? Probably single digits. And so that's rough. But, again, great team they played. I have Texas. I mean, they are steady climbing my rankings.
I think if you said the last 3 Bama quarterbacks, that'd be a no-brainer and say, probably single digits. But last 5 –
I bet it's even low. Real low.
Yeah.
In other words, Bama quarterbacks take care of the ball.
Yeah.
If this becomes a trend, and I'm not saying it will, where he's throwing a pick a game, because right now he's throwing a pick a game, right? Then that's trouble.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right. Well, we talked about Bama a lot there. I don't want to take anything away from Texas. They're a great team. They're ranked 4th in the newest AP poll, and deservingly so.
Yeah, I think they're better than Bama. Yeah.
All right, let's move on. We have 10 Notre Dame at NC State. This one started off really, really slow. They had the weird weather delay where they cleared out the stadium and all that.
How about lightning striking the scoreboard?
Yeah.
That's so odd.
We locked this one. We had Notre Dame minus 2.5, and we cleared that by a long shot.
Yeah, like you said, with it being close, man, I got nervous. I was out and about for this one, and, man, looking at the score, I was like, I don't know what's going on, but it needs to stop going on. Because Notre Dame needs to figure it out, and Aldrich Estimate kind of set the tone to do just that.
It was immediately after they came back from that weather delay. Towards the, I don't remember if the weather delay was with a minute left in the first quarter or immediately after the first quarter.
I was going to say right in the second.
But late in that early in that second quarter, Aldrich Estimate had an 80-yard touchdown run that really kind of set the tone for the rest of the game. And then on the very next possession, Notre Dame picked it off as well.
Yeah, he's him.
Yeah, so I think that was the turning point in the game. NC State did come down. They scored to make it a one-possession game again, but from then on, it was just Sam Hartman being Sam Hartman. And that's the reason why we're so confident in him every time we take the field.
Yeah.
He was able to stand back in the pocket. He'd float around, make defenders miss. I mean, there were times when he was in the backfield for 7-8 seconds, allowing his guys time to get open. And when they did, he found them. And it was 30-yard. It was a 30-yard catch or a 40-yard catch down the sideline, and that's what you get when you have Sam Hartman as your quarterback.
Yeah, you get a lot of time. You get a lot of open receivers because of that time. And, yeah, I mean, obviously they ran away with it. This doesn't worry me about Notre Dame at all.
No, me either.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so, look at this. Obviously you get off to a slow start, but they did what they needed to do.
Yeah, Hartman finished with 286 yards and 4 touchdowns. On the flip side of the ball, the defense had 3 picks.
Yeah,
like
that's all you can ask for.
This Notre Dame team is serious. I think they got off to a slow start against a decent NC State team. I'm not saying they're great. I'm not saying they're bad. A decent NC State team who perennially wins 7 to 9 games. So a good team. Notre Dame shut them down. So
I can't wait till they play Ohio State, bro. I can't wait till that game.
You don't have to wait super long.
I know. I believe it's week 5, so I'm hyped about that one.
Now, another game that we locked.
Oh, my God.
We had number 12 Utah, -2.5 at Baylor, and we backdoored that one.
Yeah.
This was a struggle win for Utah. Bad.
This one worries me, man. I mean, you're missing both quarterbacks.
Yep.
What a weird situation.
Yep.
Chopin's out and
Cam Rising.
Cam Rising is out, yes. First of all, Cam Rising needs to get back on the field.
Yeah, why was he? He was cleared to play.
I don't understand what happened. I don't know if it was a personal reason. I really don't know. But being that he was cleared to play, we thought he was going to play, and here we are, right? Talk about a backdoor. So, let's talk about the whole game, not just that drive, right?
Go ahead.
First of all, this should have been a blowout.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the spread was because I know we had an alt spread.
It was 6.5.
I thought, this should have been a blowout. Especially without Chopin. This Baylor team, after what they did last week with Texas State, there's no reason they should have even come close to being in this game. And leading through 3 quarters is a problem. We were sweating this one for sure. Thoughts?
The Utah defense did everything you could ask of them. They held NC State
till the very, very end, but yes.
They held NC State to two field goals and a touchdown, so less than 14 points. In my book, if you can hold a team to less than 14, you win. Yeah. Even in today's football, if you can hold them to less than 21, you should win.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, granted, NC State did that and lost, but in today's football where it's passing attack and people are throwing for 300 yards in every game, you hold somebody to less than 20, you should win. So I think this is more so.
Baylor did that,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So Baylor, I apologize.
No, you're good.
So it's not necessarily an indictment on the defenses, but on the offenses of both teams. And again, I know neither team had their starting quarterback, but there's no reason that this Utah team, who went out and did what they did to Florida and back-to-back Pac-12 champions and in the Rose Bowl, I know they lost it, but in the Rose Bowl, this is a solid team with one of the most tenured coaches in all of college football. And they didn't score a touchdown until the 4th quarter on this NC State team, this Baylor team, rather. I keep saying that.
You really want them to play NC State.
Yeah, Baylor.
That's an issue. And again, looking at what they did, again, without Cam Rising last week against Florida, this one kind of hurt. So, yeah, I mean, you want to talk about that last drive. So, Utah's going down the field. Obviously, Baylor basically lets them score, which I was so confused about, being that there was 37 seconds left. It wasn't like there was a minute and change, where I truly felt like, oh, let them score, we have time. No, there was no time. I don't know why they let them score. And granted, I don't know why the Utah player was doing the same thing. With 37 seconds left, go score. But anyway, right, they let them score. 30 seconds left. I feel real good about our luck. They're up 7. I feel real good. 3 quick completions, one of them being 40 yards. What the heck happened? Utah just decided to stop playing defense, and this one was a real sweat. Ball to the end zone, knocked out of the hands of a Baylor player. In his hands, had to be knocked out.
It very easily could have been called pass interference.
No doubt. Yeah, this game really came to the wire, truly. And, brother, Utah, you talk about some work to do. I mean, especially with the way that, we're going to get into that super shortly. But, yeah, man, this is not looking like Utah should be looking right now.
I think that's the prevent defense needs to just go ahead and be removed from everyone's defensive playbook.
Yeah,
it doesn't need to be in your scheme. Nothing. Yep. Don't do it.
We've seen enough times where it hasn't worked to even be putting it on the field.
Yeah, you want to be in a cover 3 and tell your safeties don't get beat over top.
Yep.
Fine, but the prevent where you drop 7 guys into coverage and rush 3 and give the quarterback all day,
all the time, yeah.
It doesn't make sense. I don't understand why people keep doing it.
Yep, receivers are too good nowadays.
But Utah gets the win whenever. Look, as bad as this game looked for them, they come out unblemished. They're undefeated, and they should be getting Cam Rising back. I think they're still in a good spot. This game looks bad on their schedule, but if you look at their record, they're 2-0.
Yeah, you look at this. I look at this game like I looked at Ohio State last year with Northwestern. Dude, that was a struggle. It was pouring down rain. Like, they couldn't get anything done, and everybody was, like, crapping on them. I'm kind of crapping on Utah here in a slight way. But, there's nothing saying they won't bounce back, get Cam Rising back, and go blow everybody else out.
Yeah.
So, but again, unblemished. I feel decent about Utah, but definitely this one, I mean, they sucked.
Yeah.
They really did this game. So.
Yep. Okay, let's move on. We have 13 Oregon at Texas Tech. Oregon wins this one 38-30, but I seem to remember somebody a couple weeks before the season saying that Texas Tech is one of those teams that could sneak up on Oregon.
Yeah.
I don't remember
Oregon
who
won
said it.
just like I predicted. That's crazy. That is nuts. Yeah, I mean, you said they could sneak up, and they didn't. So are you calling yourself out for being wrong? Or?
They absolutely did. They didn't win, but they definitely snuck up on them. They were
what is the definition of sneaking up on a team?
Being in a game.
Being real quiet as you're walking in? Like, I don't really understand. They lost, right?
They lost, but they were down 1 with ball with less than a minute left, a chance to go take the lead and win. Again, I think Oregon should have won this game by much more than they did. All I was saying before was that Texas Tech is a team that absolutely can go in and beat you. Now, they didn't, but it was way closer than it needed to be. So before we get to before we get to the end of the game, let's talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, Oregon played a great game. Like, I could almost say that with conviction, right? Like, Bo Nix went crazy. Bucky Irving was slow, but it was a lot of passing the ball. That's why Bo Nix had such a great day. Other than the fact of how undisciplined they were. Just like we talked about with Bama, I mean, Oregon was even worse. 14 penalties for 124 yards.
Yeah.
Hey, man, that's tough to beat anybody with something like that. You're giving up over the length of the field. For those of y'all that didn't know, it was a 100-yard field. Yeah. But, I mean, that's crazy. Put that in perspective. Bo Nix goes for 359 and 2 touchdowns. Didn't throw a pick. Oregon didn't turn the ball over. They forced 4 turnovers and won by 8. That's what penalties will do to you. So.
Yep. You especially with a gritty team like Texas Tech, you can't keep giving them opportunities.
Yeah, they don't go away.
Oregon allowed Texas Tech to be in this game, and Texas Tech they took advantage of every opportunity.
Yeah, sneakily, right?
Sneakily. Now, again, like you said, on the stat sheet, shouldn't have been nearly as close as it was. But again, Texas Tech had an opportunity to go win it with 40 seconds left on the clock, down 1. Oregon gets home, they sack him. The quarterback tries to throw the ball, defensive end just grabs it. It was just one of those bloopers that had there been nobody there would have fell to the ground and been harmless. But defensive end's there, grabs it, houses it, and that's ball game.
Yeah.
Are you still confident that Oregon's going to win the Pac-12?
Yeah, they're still very much my pick. Yeah. Yeah, I think this is a rough game for them. I think they still are better than USC and better than Utah. So
especially,
Washington's coming, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with you. I think look, Texas Tech did shut down Bucky Irving, but in the Pac-12, in those high-flying offenses, I think Bucky Irving is the difference maker there.
Yeah, I agree. And specifically, I said a lot of syllables for that word. The defenses in the Pac-12, nobody's stopping Bucky Irving like that.
Right. And
so I still feel really good about Oregon. I think they're criminally underrated. But I mean, we'll kind of see how it plays out. They still have Washington left. They still have all those. But being the 4th ranked is what I was going for. I said rated after trying. Being the 4th ranked Pac-12 team is criminal. Like I said, being ranked under Utah, I mean, that's poor. So especially after going and putting up 81 last week. But yes, to answer your question, I still feel really good about Oregon winning the Pac-12.
Okay. Let's go to the ACC, North Carolina versus App State.
Baby.
Again, an overtime struggle win. North Carolina wins 40-34.
Yeah, I mean, last year, I think I would venture to say the worst conference would have been the Pac-12. Even the winner lost in the bowl game. USC lost in the bowl game. Like, they were, like, statistically, overall, they had the worst record.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of their best teams lose in bowl games.
Yeah.
This year, it is without a doubt the ACC.
Yeah.
As far as competition at the top, the whole 9. UNC was one of those teams that, first of all, went to the ACC championship last year. Second of all, was supposed to compete, have a Heisman finalist. The whole 9. Hey, man, it is crumbling. They're 2-0 right now, but they look horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, App State did it to them last year. They went to, I don't know if it was overtime or not. I don't recall, but I know it was 63-61.
Yeah.
They can't stop a team like App State. You're running into trouble here.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, an overtime struggle win, 40-34.
And let's talk about game flow a little bit here, because early in the game, North Carolina drives down the field. They get inside App State's 15, 4th and 1 situation. They go for it out of the Wildcat formation and don't convert.
Right.
2 things here. 1, if you're playing App State and it's not a top 10 game, or it's not going to be it shouldn't be a neck and neck game the whole way through, take your points, get on the board, expect your defense to get a stop.
Yeah.
They don't take the points.
Right.
They decide to go for it. Now, 2, if you're going to go for it on 4th and 1 on your opponent's 15 with Drake May as your quarterback, don't take him out of the game.
Yeah. I don't care who your running back is.
What are we doing?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all, especially when you don't have a great running back. So, Mac Brown is getting a little too up there in age to be coaching. I'm joking because he is a good coach, but yeah, that's poor. That's really poor.
I will say about Drake May, he had no passing touchdowns. He had no passing touchdowns. He was somewhere around 250 passing yards. The highlight of North Carolina for the day, and the reason they won, is they had 319 yards rushing.
Yeah, which is odd when you do have a quarterback like Drake May.
Yeah.
But yeah, 40 points with no passing touchdowns that's awesome. If it wasn't a close game and against App State.
Yeah.
I'd step back and say that was great if those two weren't, constant.
To me, the biggest concern is 34, giving up 34. Now, granted, it's half of what they gave up last year, so improvement there. But you can't give up 34 to a Sun Belt team and expect to, continue and win big games in the rest of your schedule.
Now, they did outrush them, but they did get outpassed, and they still gave up over 200 rushing yards.
Yeah, they outrushed them. If you run for 319 yards, you better outrush somebody.
Yeah.
But defensively, if you give up over 200 rushing yards to App State and get outpassed when Drake May is your quarterback, you have big issues defensively.
Yes.
And all I heard all offseason was North Carolina's gotten better on defense with Drake May as the quarterback. They can make a real shot at the playoffs, all this kind of stuff. Hey, no. Let's take a step back. Let's look at this team, talk about it what it is. Drake May is a great quarterback. He's probably going to be a top 5 draft pick. Mm-hmm. But this is a mediocre team.
Right.
This is a team that could finish inside the top 20, but
look great against South Carolina.
They're not going to the playoffs. Let's get that out of our head.
No. Especially in their conference.
Yeah.
When we have a top 5 team in their conference. So
no, they could go to the ACC championship because the ACC is down. Weak, frankly. Yeah. Clemson looks rough still. They had a big win, but they looked rough still.
Yeah.
But this isn't a team that's getting past Florida State.
No, not even close. No.
All right, let's move on to the last lock of the week. We had Wisconsin money line at Washington State, and we missed. So Washington State wins this one 31-22. And the story of the game for Wisconsin is fumbles. They were better. Yeah. They were better in all aspects of the game.
They are better.
Yeah, they were better. And as a football team, they are better. But they fumbled 3 times and lost them all.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very hard. We said it earlier with the penalties. It's very hard to win a game when you do that.
Yeah. Yep. I don't have a ton on that game. Look, I still think Wisconsin's going to be really good down the stretch. Maybe not right now, but I think
not elite.
Yeah. But I think with what Luke Fickell is doing with that team and what he's going to do over the next 3 seasons, I think the dynamic of that team is changing, and they're leaning more towards the rushing attack while still utilizing the passing attack properly.
Yeah.
But they've got to take better care of the ball if they're gonna compete in the Big Ten, because you can't go out and lose to Washington State playing the way they did because you fumbled 3 times.
Right. Yeah.
It's unacceptable.
I agree.
Ole Miss goes to New Orleans and beats Tulane. Ole Miss wins 37-20. I think the story of the game here was it was tight much longer than it probably should have been, considering Michael Pratt didn't play.
Yeah, Michael Pratt. I mean, that was the sole reason it was supposed to be an upset alert. Neither of us picked Tulane, but the reason it was even going to be close, and it was close-ish. No, it wasn't.
It was
close for a while. It didn't end up close.
Yeah, till late in the third quarter.
Yeah, was because of Michael Pratt. He doesn't play.
Well, that's what I'm saying is it was legitimately a close game till late in the third quarter. Ole Miss had a pick that kind of changed the course of how that game was going to go.
Right.
But Yeah, I mean, it was neck and neck at halftime, and then through up until that pick.
Right.
So I think Tulane's honestly a solid team, even without Michael Pratt to go and play the way they did for as long as they did against Ole Miss and one of the best rushing attacks in the country.
Yeah.
They're a solid team who are better than I gave them credit for. But
they can't compete with some of the best in the SEC.
No, I agree with that.
Especially without their starting quarterback.
And the point I was making last week on the preview show was that if they can go and get a home win against Ole Miss, then they're poised to win the remainder of their schedule, and they have to be in the conversation for the playoffs. Now that's over.
Yeah,
they can go win the rest of their games, and it's done because
including the conference championship, and it's still done.
It's done because they lost by 17 points to an Ole Miss team that very likely they're seated highest in the SEC West right now, but they're very likely not going to win the SEC West.
Yeah,
or the SEC for that matter.
No.
So. No. You know, that's a tough break on Tulane not having your quarterback for that game. He was a game time decision and then ended up not playing. I really thought he was going to play. I know it was a knee injury, but given the circumstances, I kind of expected him to play.
Especially a home game, I agree. But yeah, that'll kill your team. Excuse me.
All right, one more game to recap here. Number 23, Texas A&M loses to Miami. Miami wins this one 48-33 at home.
Yeah, I didn't expect it to be near this high scoring. I don't know if you did.
No,
I thought this was going to be a 24-20 or something like that. I knew it was going to be close. And another upset alert that we predicted, well, sort of. I had Texas A&M in this one. This is tough for them. They won this game last year in a close one.
Yeah, they did.
They won this game last year. Brother Van Dyke went dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, 374 and 5. I'll say it again, and it sounds so dumb. It's really difficult to win when the opposing quarterback puts up 350 and 5 on your head. That's tough. Now, if you would have tried to bet me money that Van Dyke would outplay Connor Wegman, I would have given you whatever you wanted. And he got outplayed bad. But he still did go for 336 and 2, but the problem was he threw 2 picks.
Yeah, I don't think Connor Wegman played a bad game, though.
No.
Connor Wegman, again, he threw for 336 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did throw 2 interceptions. I'll get to those in a second. But he was also a weapon on the feet. Like, Wegman's a problem.
Oh, no doubt.
He's a really, really good quarterback.
No doubt.
Now, getting back to those 2 interceptions, one of them specifically, it was to a receiver sitting in a window, just sitting in the hook zone, and the receiver fell.
Yeah.
Straight up fell. It was an open receiver sitting in the window between three defenders. He fell, and the safety just came and grabbed it. Not much you can do. Not much you can ask more of Wegman. He found an open receiver and threw it to him, and the receiver fell. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So that's two of their turnovers. They also fumbled the ball on a 3rd and 1 in their own territory late. At that point, whenever they fumbled that ball, it was pretty much a wrap.
It was already, yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt. There was no coming back from that one.
Honestly, offensively, I'm not mad at the game I saw from Texas A&M.
Not at all.
They have to limit the turnovers. Duh. They have to limit the turnovers. Yeah. But the play I saw from Wegman, from those receivers, and honestly, all around. Again, if you just don't turn it over if you don't turn it over, let's say you take 2 of those off, they very likely win.
Yeah.
The biggest concern
especially in their own territory.
The biggest concern I have when talking about Texas A&M is they have to tackle better.
Yeah.
They did a decent job of staying on top or staying over top and not allowing the deep ball, but almost all I'm exaggerating a little bit, not all of them, but almost all of Miami's big plays had a ridiculous amount of yardage after contact.
Yeah.
There were broken tackles involved, and then there were receivers making people miss. Like, straight up, Texas A&M could not tackle anybody on Miami's team.
It's so funny. They, switched.
Yeah.
Last year, they couldn't get the offense going at all. Now it's the defense. This is the second game in a row where they've given up, I think, 30-plus points. But, with the offense going, now you just need both. Problem is, you're in the SEC West, and like Ole Miss we were talking about, it's going to be real hard to come back from one loss already.
And that SEC West seems ridiculously more competitive now because you have
Bama, LSU, and A&M all with a non-con loss.
Yeah, so they're all 0-0 in conference play.
Right.
Ole Miss they have the only top 25 win right now in that division, but I'm really interested to see how this plays off. SEC kicks off this week, so that'll be really interesting to keep an eye on and see who's going to claim that division.
No doubt.
All right, so we're done with the recap on those games. You want to get into our power ratings after week 2?
Yeah. So this is going to be a pretty hard one here. I have Georgia.
At 1, remaining
Yes.
at 1. So mine 1, 2 stayed the same. I have
Mine as well.
Georgia and Michigan at 1 and 2.
Yeah, I have Georgia, Michigan at 1 and 2 as well. And 3, I have Florida State.
As do I.
Yeah.
I have Florida State sitting at 3.
Bama has dropped for me after the quarterback play. It's kind of rough. They really took a nice little drop on mine. You'll be happy to see that. But their quarterback play has kind of killed it. Florida State, again, about as complete as it gets. They played Southern Miss, but I needed to see, again, dominance, right? Like, I have them so high that anything less would kind of be like, dang, really? 66-13. And again, I know this isn't a ranking system, but, bro, they look so good.
Yeah.
So I have them at 3.
I also have them at 3.
Right, so does the AP poll. So
yeah,
I guess they're fairly ranked at 3 too.
I'm right there with you. You said you dropped Alabama down a lot. I'll go ahead and spill the beans here. I dropped Alabama out of my top 10 power ratings.
Yeah.
Now, I don't necessarily think that they're not a top 10 team in the country. I think given their potential, they absolutely have that potential. Let's put it that way. They have the potential to be a top 5 team in the country.
Right.
But given what I've been seeing, I had to drop them out because I need to see that stuff fixed, knowing that it's not talent on the field, it's not ability on the field, it is mistakes and lack of discipline that limits you to the point where you can lose by double digits at home.
Yeah.
And you still have 2 really tough games on your schedule.
Yeah.
So I think they're right on the cusp, but they're out of my top 10.
Speaking of the team that did the whole double-digit win in Tuscaloosa, I have Texas at 4.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, I'm on the Texas bandwagon, just not Quinn Ewers quite yet.
I moved Texas up a good bit, but I have Penn State actually at 4.
Okay.
Penn State's done nothing wrong. They've dominated both teams they've played, and I think they just look complete at this point. So
Yeah.
I'm interested to see them get into the Ohio State Michigan portion of their schedule. I know that's later down the line, but we need to give Penn State the love they deserve.
Yeah. And at 5-6, I have Ohio State and then Penn State.
I also have Ohio State at 5. I think Ohio State and Penn State are both just a notch behind Michigan right now. And if you would have told me 3 weeks before the season started that I'd have Penn State ranked power rated over Ohio State, I would have looked at
what the hell happened, right?
I would have looked at you funny, but I think the potential for both of these teams is playoffs.
Yeah.
I think they both can get there. Penn State so far has just looked like the better team to me.
I almost agree with that. I have them. The problem is I have to put 1 at 5, 1 at 6.
Yeah.
And so here we are.
And
I Ohio State at 5, Penn State at 6.
And I think more highly of them than you because I put them at 4 and 5.
Exactly.
So
right.
At 6, I have Texas.
Yeah.
I know you had them there at 4. I love Quinn Ewers. Everything I saw out of Texas leads me. I have no issues with them being 4th in the AP poll. I'm just, whenever we do a power rating, we're talking specifically about if Texas played Ohio State 100 times, I'd have Ohio State winning at least 51 of them.
51, right.
And the same can be said about the teams I've rated higher.
No doubt.
But Texas is a great team that if they get into the playoffs, they're going to be a problem.
Yeah, I agree. Number 7, I have Oregon.
Okay.
I struggle not to put Oregon even higher. I have them rated as my number 1 team in the Pac-12.
What? So why is that? After what we saw with the Texas Tech game, why is that?
Yeah, the penalties, right? The penalties right there. It sounds weird. I have them rated so high because they had so many penalties. That's why that game stayed close. I don't think that's going to be a problem for them going forward. So I think they'll be okay.
So we simply view that metric differently because that sole reason, plus the turnovers, is why I dropped Alabama out of my top 10.
Yeah.
So I don't disagree with you that Oregon's a great team and very likely going to be in the Pac-12 championship.
Right.
We just view that metric differently.
I agree.
I have Notre Dame at 7 because they started out slow, but yet again, Aldrich Estime, Sam Hartman, they did their thing. Yeah. The defense stepped up and had the best game of the year. I mean, I know they've only played 3 games, but the defense stepped up and had their best game of the year so far in terms of turnovers. This is a team that's going to be really dangerous. Like you said, I can't wait for them to play USC and Ohio State.
That's why I have them at 8. Enough said.
Yeah.
Who you got at 8?
Washington.
I feel that.
Washington. So look, this is actually the first Pac-12 team I'm naming here. Again,
it's got to be like Penn State. They just haven't done any wrong yet.
Yeah.
I feel that.
Yep, same thing. And I think when I look at the field of Pac-12 teams, I say, okay, Caleb Williams is the best quarterback.
No doubt.
But then I say Michael Penix Jr. is right there. He's the second best quarterback. And that's the best wide receiver room, and it's not close.
I'd agree.
Yeah, so I'm going to go quarterback. I'm going to go wide receiver room. And their ability to score at will in their conference, this is a team that I really, really like their odds this year.
I don't disagree.
And you had Notre Dame at 8.
At 8.
At 9, I have USC. So again, right there with Washington, but just a notch behind.
I have so no Oregon yet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have Bama at 9. I think all the things you said, I 100% agree. I think with Bama is really and truly they have potential to win out. I don't mean win out in the regular season. I don't mean win the SEC championship. I don't mean win their bowl. I mean win out. That is always the thing with Bama, right? We even said it before the year. It doesn't matter who they run out at quarterback. If they make it to the playoffs, they're immediately probably going to be my favorite because that means everything clicked, right? And because of where they're at, I feel good. When you bite a dog, it's I don't mean a human bites a dog.
Right.
When a dog gets bit and put in the corner, right, its only way is up, right? I am worried about Bama because there's a slight shot that's not the way they go. But coming off of a home loss like that, where, by the way, they had the longest home winning stretch of anyone in college football, I still feel good about Bama doing some crazy things, just not as good as the 8 teams above them.
Yeah,
So,
I don't disagree with you. Again, I was the one that said it, that if Alabama gets to the playoffs, they'll very likely win the playoffs.
yeah, I agree.
But they still have LSU and Tennessee on their schedule
Yeah.
in the regular season, and I need to see them get past those games.
I agree.
Once they do and how those games go, if and when they do and how those games play out, my opinion on Bama will change.
I feel that.
And then at number 10, I have Oregon. So I had Washington, USC,
Who's your
Oregon.
9? Who's your 9?
USC.
Okay, that's right.
So at 8, 9, and 10, I had 3 Pac-12 teams: Washington, USC, Oregon. They're all neck and neck to me, but I value Michael Penix Jr. in that wide receiver room to USC. Again, Caleb Williams is the best quarterback in the country, but defensively, USC has problems. They can't stop the run, and against a team like Oregon, that's gonna be tricky.
That was the first thing I wanted to bring up with Oregon, right? I have Washington at 10. The problem with them and that USC is off, it's the defense. That's why I have Oregon higher. That's why I have Washington at 10 and not even closer to Oregon. It's because of the defense, the gap there. And then USC would be right on my cusp, along with Utah probably, waiting for Cam Rising, and then probably Tennessee.
So my honorable mentions here, I had Alabama, Tennessee, Utah, and Oregon State.
Oregon State, they look really good.
Oregon State's defense is always great, and something's clicking with DJ. He's balling.
That O-line.
Yeah.
They're giving him so much time, and again, receivers are just getting open. So, yep.
Yeah. So one last time, look, we did miss our lock parlay. We had Notre Dame and Utah. They both covered for us. Wisconsin literally fumbled our parlay away. They fumbled 3 times.
Literally.
So that sucks. But we'll come back this week. We'll probably just pick up right at that $22 or $20 mark and go straight for the 40.
7 for 9. If you're betting them straight, you're doing a damn good job.
Yeah. So anything else?
I'm good, man.
Anything else on this one? The new AP poll did come out again. Florida State and Texas are in the top 4 there, so that's real interesting. Penn State mixed in the top 6.
Jump into that.
So we'll cover all that in the second show of the week, and we'll get into game previews as well as our locks. So yeah. Again, with our lock parlays and specifically our locks, right? Like, so what we're trying to do, and with our power ratings as well. The way we make our power ratings and the way we look at our locks is we take who we think, we use alternate spreads for the locks, but we take who we think would win 51 to 55 times out of 100, and that's how we make our ratings, and that's how we base our locks. But if you want to see us get a model and pay to have a model built to where we can do that and take our human element out of it and just do stats and numbers, because that's what we're trying to get to, and we need help getting there. Y'all, we need people here watching, so do that for us. Follow us on Instagram at 10-second runoff, Twitter at 10-second runoff, TikTok at 10-second runoff. Really appreciate y'all.
No doubt.